All right, guys, we've had a couple of days. Let's look back at Masvidal versus Colby. And, we did that over here. It took us 3 weeks to look back on Francis versus Ciryl Gane, which was a snooze fest the night that it happened. But after a little bit of time, it started looking better and better. And you started to see it a little bit different. And then you started really having an appreciation for Francis, particularly when it's disclosed he's out there on one leg. He's down by 2 rounds. He can't win a stand-up battle because he's not fast enough, so he's got to go to a wrestling battle that he's never done before in the history of his career, and he successfully does it in a main event of a world title fight on pay-per-view while having stresses of the future of his career. I mean, right? It starts to look pretty damn good. Let's take another look because I've heard some stuff said about Masvidal that I don't agree with. A lot of people have just made a comment that Masvidal wasn't prepared. That one, he wasn't prepared for the wrestling, and two, his conditioning wasn't on point. Well, hold on. I saw a pretty damn good-looking Masvidal out there. If you were to take Masvidal and you were to take Colby, and you were to ask who was the better fighter, now that gets complicated, right? Because it's not as simple as who won the fight. Well, there we have our answer. No, not necessarily. Particularly when it got won with the same move, in the exact same position, in the same part of the cage. They fought 25 minutes. You guys aware of that? They fought 25 minutes in the same part of the cage. There's 8 pieces of chain link fence that make up the octagon. The one same piece is the same piece that Colby pushed Masvidal into every single round. Got every single takedown and kept him right there against the fit. 25 minutes in the same spot of the cage. So, yeah, we can determine who won the fight. I'm asking a different question. Who's better at fighting? You see where it's not always the same thing? I feel if you were to watch Colby and you watch Masvidal, and let's just use the belt system that's very traditional in this sport. Masvidal for sure is a black belt. Colby might not be. Colby's approaching it. Colby's a top 5 ever in that weight class, and much closer to top 3, by the way. Much closer to top. I'm going to say top 5 just so I don't have to argue with anybody. Overall fighting, though, who understands more? Who understands the defense and the offense, the setups and the positions, the legs, the knees, the elbows, the hands, the submission, the grappling, if you came to the conclusion that it's Masvidal, you came to the same conclusion as I did. Colby understood these things, and Colby understood, don't go A to Z with him. Get him into the fence, slow his ass down, get your hands on him, keep your hands on him. That was emphasis number 1 by Colby. And even if that resulted in a takedown, they could have been dead center of the octagon on their feet. Colby would have had a hold of him. Colby understood, I got to grab him. He might be better, but there's ways to beat a guy that knows more. There's ways to beat a guy that's more experienced. There's ways to beat a guy who's better than you. Sure there is. And this is a wrestling mindset by Covington. All wrestlers have that. I don't care if this guy's better than me. If I put his shoulders down, I win. I don't care if his parents love him more. If I have more points than he does, when time runs out, I move on. So there's mental games that you can play, and their understanding of each other is a bonus and it's a deficit. It's the same thing, but there's 2 sides to that coin. And you guys can all relate to this. Somebody that had the big brother effect on you. Maybe you had a big brother. Maybe you had a cousin. Maybe you had a friend. Maybe you had a classmate who at some point you guys went head to head and he had the edge. He still has it on you today, doesn't he? At least mentally. You don't look back and go, well, I've worked hard for all these years and I sure could go deal with him now. You don't. Thank God, I hope I don't ever run into that guy. It's just a real thing. It's just a psychological thing. So when these 2 guys knew each other as well as they did, Colby was coming out of those workouts on top. I personally didn't put a lot into those workouts. 1, because the last time they touched each other was 4 years ago. And 2, Masvidal was a 55-pounder. Masvidal did his best work once he put on some size. He's done his best work by far as a 170-pounder. So I didn't put a lot onto that. Now that's physically. Physically, I make a fair point. Mentally, I can share with you over the same guys that got the big brother factor over me. We've all got that you were a freshman and this guy was a senior. Whatever the case was, even if you got a perfectly good excuse, it's still real. It's still real in here. And one thing that happens, if you guys believe in the laws of attraction at all, I'm not talking about the book, The Secret. The same crap gets repackaged every 10 years and shoved up somebody's ass on Amazon. But the laws of attraction are very real. And you will find what you're looking for. If you believe a great job is out there, you're going to go find a great job. If you believe there's no jobs out there, you're not going to find a job. Like, there is a truth somewhere within this, without sounding too energy and zen and philosophical, but there is a truth somewhere in that. And if you go in with a defensive mindset of this is what I need to stop, I can stop it, I've worked on stopping it, I'm going to stop it, he's going to come after you. Mike Tyson ran his career very different than anybody else. Nobody wants cameras in the room. They don't want the secrets in the room. They don't want a coach talking to anybody. They don't want a mole in camp. Other guys do. They want exactly that. They will make sure those videos get out. Mike Tyson was one of those. Mike Tyson wanted everybody he was fighting to know, I have an uppercut that can break through any guard you have. I have a shovel hook to the body that can bring a big man down. He wanted you to know he was shadow box just with that same combination. You bring him in the bag, the room on a bag. He'll find a way to show you that combination. He wanted everybody to know, and everybody did know. And you know how many of them stopped it? All they thought about in camp was dealing with that power. All they thought about in camp was what happens when he throws that uppercut. Now all of a sudden their offense is shut down. They have a defensive mindset. That was the mental side to Jorge Masvidal. George offered a lot more resistance in the area of wrestling in that cage fight than he did in practice years ago. So George did show up prepared. George did a very good job. He went right to that fence. He got his heels and toe in the right place. Now he's coming over the top. He's dropping elbows, which is something Colby never would have experienced in practice. It was hard. It was really tough, but it was still a defensive mindset. Colby's was different. You only know this after the fact. You only know this in hindsight. You can go one of two. It's the only choices you got. Am I going to stop him or am I going to attack him? Pick one. George was going to stop him. Colby was going to attack. That's what you saw. But to come to the conclusion, I don't like anybody that's saying Masvidal didn't look good. I don't agree with that. Masvidal looked damn good. Colby and Usman are the best. Who's the number 3 guy? It might be Masvidal. That's between those guys. That's the Chimaevs and the Burns and the Vincent Luque and Belal Muhammad. They all get to speak up, but it might be Masvidal. And Masvidal really didn't lose a fight the way that story's being told. He lost a position. I see other guys that do this. You guys follow Shabazian? Shabazian, most known, he was 20 years old. He gets on a big run. He's managed by Ronda Rousey, but he was really the hype and he was coming around. He loses a couple of fights. I don't think he needs to be frustrated because he's not losing fights. He lost the same position in 4 different rounds spread over 2 different evenings. So we don't have to throw everything out like Shabazian doesn't know what he's doing. It's a position. Darren Till is going through it. Darren Till's halfway convinced he doesn't know how to fight anymore. Darren Till is an excellent fighter. He's got a position. He has a position, specifically not only on his back, but when a guy gets to side control. He's got a position that you can pin him down in. I only submit for you. Colby was the fair winner. That fight was scored correctly. It was 5 rounds, so I get the whole thing, but Colby didn't necessarily outfight him. He won him in a position. Colby was thinking on a different level. I listen to fighters. I realize fighters lie, but I listen to them carefully before I bring you guys my analysis. When I bring you my analysis, I take that very serious. Because some of you are going to listen to me and part with your hard-earned money. So I will do my due diligence to look into it, but I do take fighters at their word. I never heard Jorge Masvidal say, I'm going to beat Colby Covington. I never heard it. I heard him say, I'm going to hit him in the face. I heard him say, I'm going to expose him. I heard him say, I'm going to fight him. I heard him say, I'm going to punch him right in his mouth. I never heard him say, I'm going to beat him. Colby, on the other hand, every interview he did, as hot and as heat and as bothered as he was very calculated at understanding this is still a contest that will be scored under the 10-9 must system, spread over 5 rounds under the ABC rules. Colby got it. So George did what George said he was going to do. He pushed him, he exposed him, he cracked him right in the face. Maybe he exposed that Colby's pretty good at dealing with that. Either way, Masvidal is a man of his word. Colby also did what he said he's going to do. I'm not going to go out and fight him and kickbox with him and show this and show all the things that I've worked on. I'm going to get a hold of you. I'm going to push you in the fist. I'm going to bring you down. And when this night is over, I'm going to get my hand raised. That's what happened. It was a good fight. Stephen A. Smith spoke about it. Said that he was very surprised that Masvidal, 2 things that Stephen A. said. He was very surprised that Masvidal wasn't ready to deal with the wrestling, and he was surprised at the fatigue that Masvidal got to. Steven's not wrong. That's what we all saw. And George knew that going in. But again, that's defensive. I think if George could do that fight again, he'd have gone, where can I attack Colby, not where can I shut Colby down? And secondly is on the thought of conditioning. Many guys that will get tired, and I'll tell you what, don't ever get behind a fighter that's got energy left at the end of the night. He just screwed you. I was exhausted in every match I had. People used to brag about my car. Oh, Chael's in such good shape. I would be in good shape. That's true. I appreciate that compliment, but I would be exhausted. There was no easy match or hard match. They were all the same match. 100% of my energy goes into that night. So a fighter should be tired at the end of the night. But secondly, one thing that people don't understand from a sports training physiology standpoint is you will top out. And now it doesn't have to do with you. Now it's not, oh, I could have worked harder. I could have eaten better. I could have slept more. I could have done more sprints, more stairs, more runs. No, you will top out. And this gets proven. I mean, our best conditioned athletes, just look at them every 4 years at the Summer Olympics. They will train every single day, full time. They will take their shirt off and just be carved the most beautiful athletes, right? 4 years later, they will be within 1/10 of a second of what you previously saw them. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. But my only point being, you do top out. You get a 5-minute mile, it's not as though if you just keep training, eventually you're going to see 4. No, it doesn't work that way. The same thing goes with strength. You got a 225 on the bench. If you just keep doing it right, eventually you'll be a 325 and 425 and 5. No, you're going to top out. And now that's where DNA comes in. Some guys' lungs are literally bigger. Lance Armstrong, but he had mutant lungs. Other guys with your CO2 max, there's scientific things that you can do to look into it, but there's also the top. You're also at your peak. So you bring that in, you got another guy, you both worked really hard, did similar things, even the exact same things. One guy's DNA is different. He's going to get tired at a different rate than you do. That's just the reality. I don't think that speaks to somebody being unprepared.